Taking a look at how the Buccaneers can build on the good and bad from their first preseason game as the starters prepare to play this weekend against the Kansas City Chiefs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into today's episode of Locked On Bucs. I'm your host, James Yarcho, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Join all the action at FanDuel.com to play daily dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer this MLB season. I am, of course, joined by Mr. Evan Klosky of 10 Tampa Bay. We are going to get into some of Baker Mayfield's comments, the latest, according to Adam Schefter, on the Vita Vea situation, and find out what Evan is watching for against the Chiefs this weekend. But Evan, we are going to start with the last preseason game against your beloved Jets. I gave some of my big takeaways on yesterday's show, but I want to hear, kind of what you thought of the overall performance. We know score doesn't matter. We know Jets had their starters, Bucs didn't, all those things. But I want to kick things off with your biggest takeaway in terms of a positive that you saw in that game.
What I really like to see was Elijah Roberts look like he doesn't belong on the field with a bunch of those backups, right? Like Elijah Roberts did some really good things as a rookie last year. And he was really good at getting after the quarterback. The running game is a little bit different for him. He's been working on that. He's talked about it. But when he got on the field with a bunch of backups, like Elijah Roberts looked like he was significantly better than a lot of people on the field. And that's kind of what you want to see from a dude entering his second year who played a significant amount of snaps in his rookie season. So I really like that. Obviously, the Aiden Garden stuff is great. There are significant concerns with tackling, and we still got to figure out if he can fit the run the way he's supposed to, down after down. And that's going to be a developmental thing. But the coverage abilities, making big plays, like that's stuff that we've been seeing in training camp, and it carried over under the lights. So it was looking like a really bad game for him to start, and then things changed. So, at least from a special teams perspective as well. So that was really nice to see. And then from a negative side of things, and this is something where I have seen it throughout training camp, and it didn't stick out in a major way for the totality of the game, but certainly when it was ones versus twos and whatnot. If Tristan Wirfs and Luke Gedeke go down this year for any amount of time, they're still going to be in some really big trouble. Chuck Wuma, who hasn't practiced this week, hasn't looked like himself, or hasn't looked like the guy that we were thinking it was really promising last year. And that hasn't been. And now it might be the talent of guys like Yaya and Reuben Bain Jr. Like those guys might be also causing some significant fits. But Justin School also looks like he is not the guy that we saw a couple of years ago either. So it's good depth in a sense that they've seen NFL action before. Chuck Wuma is still a young prospect. I still like him. I mean, the fact that he's held out proves that there is something a little bit nicked up with him. But yeah, I think that's a big concern is I don't know how well this team is going to do if one of those guys on the edges goes down for any significant portion, which, we go back to last year, it was a mess with all those injuries.
Yeah, I chalked up the offensive line in this game as okay. I wasn't overly impressed by really any of them, but I also wasn't terrified, I guess. I would be concerned, as you put it, there would be some worry if Tristan or Gedeke go down for any significant time, I guess, depending on who the opponent is. I certainly don't want them going down when the Bucs are about to face the Rams. But yeah, I going back to your positives, I'm with you 100% on Elijah Roberts. At this stage, and we're gonna get your 53-man roster prediction coming up in a couple of weeks. But at this stage, do you see a path where Aiden Garnes is not going to end up on this 53-man roster based on what we've seen?
I have a tough time imagining he's not going to make the 53-man. Now, he might be one of those guys that's continually not on the active roster. Again, like the tackling needs to be improved significantly. And the special teams work didn't look spectacular in that game. But I think he's got a spot. And certainly, the last cornerback on the depth chart sort of deal, like he's proven that he's a dude you want to develop because some of those traits in coverage, really tough to teach. The other things, fitting the run and tackling, I feel like those are very teachable. So I have a tough time believing that Aiden Garnes won't be on the 53-man roster.
Let's talk about special teams for a minute, because as you pointed out, Aiden Garnes had a terrible play there. Runs out of bounds, gets a 5-yard penalty. That 5-yard penalty actually leads to 37 additional yards of field position for the Jets. Field goal kicking, I thought that was fine. Kickoff coverage, it wasn't bad. But overall, what was kind of your takeaway from the special teams units? Because I'll be upfront, I'm a little concerned about the punting. Riley Dixon did not look great, and neither did the punt coverage.
Yeah, I'm not so concerned about – look, the special teams was not great. Don't get me wrong. But they really didn't have their top dudes in there for special teams, right? Like evaluating special teams would be like you evaluating the offense or the defense without, Baker Mayfield. And it's tough to really get a true feel for how special teams will be. The fact that they didn't have a punter competition really with Riley Dixon this year is a little bit surprising. The punt his first punt that was called back because of Aiden Garnes, that was a really good punt.
It was a thing of beauty.
And then it got completely negated by a really crappy one. So yeah, he might just be like one of those like relief pitchers, right? Like it just goes up and down where it's just a little bit more volatility than usual. But I'll give him a little bit of a break here. I'm not going to overreact to some punts. Chase McLaughlin wasn't great to begin last year either, coming out of a training camp, and look, he proved to be money once the season got rolling there after like week 2. So I'm not as kind of like worried about that. I need to see a lot more.
Yeah, and that was something that I mentioned that I do want to see this weekend, and we'll get to this weekend's game a little bit later, but I want to see how the special teams performs when it's the starters. I want to see the typical linemen, the protection for McLaughlin and Dixon. I want to see the starting gunners, that kind of thing. So, I was hard on him, but that was a little bit of carryover from last year too. I feel like, and I thought your comparison to a relief pitcher was spot on, because I said I felt like Riley Dixon's one of those kind of guys that he loses confidence quickly, where if he shanks one, it seems like he can't get back on track. And God knows we've seen plenty of relief pitchers. They give up one, extra base hit. Now all of a sudden they completely unravel. So hopefully that won't be the case with Dixon throughout the season. But Baker Mayfield is certainly excited about some of his new weapons on offense. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Ross Jackson, host of the Locked On Saints podcast, and today's Locked On episode is brought to you by our friends at Basque and Lather. I've been using Basque and Lather's all-natural, 100% organic hair care products for my beard for a couple years now, and it's been a lifesaver because I used to have some bad beard care habits. I'm talking over-the-counter shampoo and the beard type stuff that created this brittle, scratchy, and uncomfortable beard that I just had to wear around all the time. But now the game done changed. Thanks to Basque and Lather, I got their beard care starter kit, which gave me shampoo, conditioner, oil balm, and their hair growth stimulator formula as well. And now my beard is full. It's soft but strong, and the confidence is on 10, and it's all thanks to Basque and Lather. Explore viral bestsellers and products of healthier hair of all types from Basque and Lather. Go to baskeandlatherco.com and use the promo code LOCKEDON for 20% off. That's 20% off at baskeandlatherco.com, code LOCKEDON.
Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every single day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Baker Mayfield spoke to the media on Tuesday. He was very complimentary of two of the new offensive players for the Bucs. He talked about Kenny Gainwell, saying that he's been completely overwhelmed with the amount of talent that Gainwell has, talking about his route running, his explosiveness in the run game. And he talks about Ted Hurst, saying that he's picking up on things really fast, his ability to high point the ball, the kind of threat he can be in the red zone. So, Evan, how do you see the new pieces in this offense being able to help take them to the next level?
Yeah, let me say this. If you're watching the show, we had election coverage. It's all day. The newsroom is crazy. That's why I've been shoved outside here, which is a 1 week deal. So I'm just trying to get comfortable out here. The other setup was not doing it for me. My back is going to be ruined. Having said that, something that stood out to me with Baker Mayfield, I loved what he had to say about Jeremiah Trotter. He was like, this guy is a bad curse word, and he talks a lot of he talks a lot of crap, and it's what the defense needed. He doesn't seem like a rookie, and that's high praise from a guy like Baker Mayfield, especially for a young kid who I think is showing that kind of snarl to appreciate that and to, pretty much give him props for it. Like to say he's that dude already, that's a really good sign for a team that needs him to have a significant impact this season, especially at that linebacker position. He also said that Servassier Dennis has looked better this year, and the defensive front has completely changed, and there's a true two deep now, and they look really good even without Vita. So a lot of positives from there on top of what you mentioned with Gainwell and how friendly of a target he can be. I really liked what Baker had to say. And it was nice to get him in front of a microphone without talking about his contract for 15 minutes. So we were actually kind of able to hear on a handful of topics from him.
Yeah, well, and for those of you that can, go check out, Rick Stroud has a column up over at the Tampa Bay Times about Baker, his healing process, basically, and it talks about literally his physical healing from last year, the emotional healing from last year, but then also some family things that went down that I was unaware of. So great work by Rick over there. Go check that out, give you a little bit more backstory on Baker Mayfield. But Evan, you brought him up. We got to talk about him. Adam Schefter said on ESPN on Tuesday that he believes a resolution with Vita Vea is coming soon and that it isn't going to be a trade. Jason Light, a week and a half ago, was very adamant, speaking with the media, that he has no plans to trade Vita Vea. Schefter said that it's the time of year where the ice begins to thaw and we see sides get things figured out. How do you feel now about the Vita Vea situation? 3 weeks into camp and still nothing from him in terms of participation. And, it doesn't seem like there's been any headway in a contract resolution.
Feel the same about it. Like what, Trey Hendrickson last year, when he got paid, when was it? It was after the final preseason game. A lot of these things get hammered out after the final preseason game when all the rosters have to be set
And, like in Vita's case, his money's guaranteed, though even if he got injured on the field, they'd have to pay him out anyway. So the fact is, once we get through the Jaguars game, that's when it's going to be go time to get a deal with Vita. Until then, I just feel like the agent is doing a lot of work for very little result in like the grand scheme of things. Like, I don't know why his agent is working so hard to get Vita's name in the national spotlight. It's not going to change the way that the Bucs feel about Vita. They love Vita. They want Vita here this year. He's under contract. They are probably going to give him a little bit of a pay bump. I think without all the show and antics, they probably would have done that anyway if you voiced your displeasure. They're not going to trade him. Like, if they were going to trade him, they would have done it a long time ago. Like, why would you wait? I mean, that's the way that I feel about it. It wouldn't make much sense to me. Like, I can probably give you a rationale why they would do it, especially like if a team's going to offer a second round pick for Vita, that changes the discussion for me. I don't think that's happening. I think he's getting a third round at best. And if it's a third round at best, the Bucs rather keep him than trade him. So I don't know what leverage Vita has. He doesn't have much outside of withholding his playing time. But the more you withhold your playing time, the more you're going to screw over your future earnings, which is what you're fighting for right now. So explain to me what you really got to do here, because I just don't understand what the big picture is in creating all of this hubbub, which is going to result in a big, like, in terms of the agent, like, national fans aren't as glued to Vita Vea as you are right now with Locked On Bucs. If you're listening to Locked On Bucs and you do it daily, you probably have a really good beat on things more than what, I don't know, a Chargers fan is going to have on the West Coast. But the Chargers fan on the West Coast is seeing Vita's name constantly out there saying, oh, he's going to be traded, he's going to be traded. Like, that's what they're saying. And then it's going to come back to him getting like a $4 million, $5 million pay bump, whatever it is. And be like, oh, that's all that happened? What a waste of time, right? Like, that's what the national fan is going to think. And I think some local fans are going to think that too.
It sounds like some conversations I had over the weekend with some buddies of mine. We did the fantasy draft, all that, and I had two of them sitting there saying the Saints are going to win the division because the Bucs were so bad last year. And I had, a couple saying that Baker's going to be a free agent and all this stuff. And I'm like, you guys look at like TikTok headlines instead of asking the guy that actually covers the team all the time. My concern is this, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts with Vita Vea. We know the Bucs have the leverage. Yeah, you laid it out perfectly. The longer he sits and the less he participates in practice, the slower the start is going to be for him. Because I realize Vita is the kind of guy that can go on the field and just start playing, but he's not in football shape. He can be in shape, but that doesn't mean you're in football shape. And we've seen that time and time again with these guys that hold out and sit out and miss extended periods of time. Do you feel like that's something that we're going to end up seeing with Vita Vea, where now all of a sudden he takes the field against the Bengals and he's not the same Vita just because he hasn't been able to ramp up, which will also help, hurt his future earnings?
Yes and no. Like, look, if let's say Vita signs the day or two after the Jaguars game, that's going to give him 2 weeks. I mean, it's probably going to give him 5 practices, maybe 5 to 6 practices. They usually get like a 4-day. They usually get like 4 days off before preparing for their first opponent. So let's say he's got 5 or 6 practices. Maybe you get into week 1. Maybe his snap count is reduced, right? Like, maybe he's not going 50, 60. Maybe he's going 30, 40. But Vita should still be Vita. It's just maybe the quantity of snaps are scaled back out of the gate. And they can certainly withstand that because they can run A'Shaun Robinson out there in his place and handle some more of that workload. Hopefully, Kalijah Kancey can make it through a full season and handle that workload. So, if Vita makes it through 17 games playing with the Buccaneers, and I think that ultimately, the the first couple of games where maybe even if it doesn't go well, all can be forgotten as long as he just takes care of business throughout the totality of the season. So in general, not really worried about Vita. He needs a couple of weeks, yes, but if it is a couple of weeks, then he's going to be just fine.
All right. Well, we have another preseason edition of Klosky's Crystal Ball. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. Baseball fans, if you think you know who's hitting a homer today, FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with daily dingers. It's easy to play. Just make your free pick for who you think will hit a home run in their game. If you're right, you'll receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. Best of all, you can make a free pick every day throughout the MLB season. Daily Dingers is another fun way to stay engaged with everyday's games, whether you're following your favorite team or keeping an eye on matchups across the league. Every game has someone capable of going deep. Now you get the chance to make your prediction before first pitch. If you think Junior Caminero is going to be able to launch one against Max Scherzer, then lock him in. And let's be honest, Scherzer hasn't exactly been lighting it up this year, having just pitched 41 innings and giving up 11 homers with a 6.59 ERA. So are you ready to play your game today? Join all the action at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to play daily dingers and make your free picks on who's hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of the MLB. Wrapping things up here on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. For those of you watching on YouTube, Evan Klosky has been giving you guys a full tour of the 10 Tampa Bay studios and office.
I want my setup back.
Yeah, I know. We need to get you like a portable soundproof booth. You can just like set it up real quick. You're not going to hear them. They're not going to hear you. Everybody's happy.
It's a 1 week deal, I promise. A 1 weeker.
Yeah. I mean, stuff happens, man. Stuff happens. I've had to do shows from, Airbnbs and hotel rooms with Wi-Fi connections that are slower than me trying to run a 40-yard dash. But anyway, back to back to Buccaneers football.
No, I want to go back to you running a 40-yard dash.
I mean, I'll do it. I'll pull all kinds of muscles because I'm old. But it won't be pretty. However, I still think I could beat both of my children in a 40-yard dash. That's when the dad strength kicks in, and I'd find a way to get it done. All right, the starters are going to play on Saturday against the Chiefs in the Bucs' lone home preseason game. Bull said it'll be around 8 to 15 plays, but it's also going to kind of depend on the game situation. If they have a long opening drive, then that's going to be it. If they go 3 and out twice, that's not 8 plays, but that's going to be it. He's going to pull them. What are you expecting to see, and what are you looking for in this second preseason matchup for the Buccaneers?
Well, with the starters, you just want to see operationally everything sound, right? Like, I don't really care about the result. It would be nice at minimum to get a field goal, but like, you don't want the penalties. You don't want like the ball dropping on the ground. You don't want to snap at the wrong time. Just want to make sure everything looks clean, and everyone obviously stays healthy. I rather Zach work on a bunch of short game stuff. Run, screen, run. Curl. Like just get the ball out of Baker's hands, especially because we know that Tristan Wirfs is not going to be playing in that contest. And I already mentioned about the offensive line. So just move the ball quickly. Let's get that settled. And then, otherwise I still want to see kind of the natural progression of some of these players. Aiden Garnes has to, he's a guy that we think is going to make the 53-man roster. He's going to have to continually prove it. And you want to still see success out of him. Pyburn's another guy that we heard from a couple days ago now. And man, he is wired something else. Like he's somebody that feels like he did not do enough in college and he didn't get drafted. And it's like he had this wake up moment of like, I gotta get after it right now. So he is determined. He had a great preseason game, and he's a guy that if he can splash again, well, like it might be an even deeper room than we thought originally. So I want to see what he's like. And then, yeah, I mean, we can, there are a list of other players, but, that's really like the guys who succeeded the first time around, Jalen Daniels, another dude. Are you able to do it again? Right? Like, that's what I want to see. Okay, so you flashed. Great. Is it a one-time deal, or did you replicate it? Did you build on top of it? That's what I kind of want to see. Are really those guys who impressed, do you keep impressing?
I'm going to make you call your shot right now, Evan Klosky. You have to put your stamp on it right now today. Does Pyburn make the roster over Chris Braswell?
Man, it's kind of tough. I just don't know enough about Pyburn's game right now. I do know enough about Chris's. Like it just depends what they want, because it looks like Pyburn might have more of a ceiling as a pass rusher. Braswell is decent enough against the run, which is boring kind of stuff and not why you draft a second rounder. But in terms of having a floor, if they could throw him out there and say, hey, don't make a mistake, I guess Braswell can do it. I'm going to lean no, just because I don't have enough information. But it's a good question for in 2 weeks when we go through the 53-man roster. Let's revisit that. But I'm not sold on that answer by any means. You got to put me on the spot. I'll just go Braswell because of the known commodity, but I'm certainly not sold on it.
All right, fair enough. We certainly will revisit. One of the other things that, obviously is going to happen. We know as they said, the starters are playing. Well, that does not include Emeka Egbuka, who's dealing with the toe sprain. It does not include Jalen McMillan, who Todd Bowles said will be sitting out in this one. Don't know if Tez will be back. I assume he is not going to play in this game. So that leaves Chris Godwin and Ted Hurst as your 1 and your 2. We know Chris. And I understand you want to get your starters out there and you want to get them some reps. I feel like this is a situation where maybe you let Chris sit out. Don't even bother putting him in there either. Let Ted get to be the number 1, get those reps, actually get passes that are on target while you continue to try to sift through the rest of this receiver competition.
I think you play Chris, but the one thing I will agree is I don't need to throw him the ball. Or if it's that, it's a screen just to get it out of the way. But, I don't need him getting dirty on blocks. It's fine for him to operationally go through it, and then the offense go through the running backs and Ted or the other, 11 personnel. Let's throw in another wide receiver in there. You can feed Payne and Bauer or Colt, whoever you're going to put out there in tight end. But I see no problems with playing Godwin, but I understand your point, and I would just not put him in harm's way, if that makes sense. Like, if he gets hurt running down the field on a route, like, dude, I don't know, like, I mean, if that's what did it, then it was going to happen in 2 weeks anyway, right?
That's
so
fair.
let's just not do anything stupid, right? Very simple vanilla plays. I don't need to know that Chris can catch a ball. Let's see what Ted can do. Have Baker and Ted have live game reps, and let's have Ted have help, which he most likely is going to have during the season, considering if this is the situation, we're back in hell. Like, that's really what it comes back to.
All right. Well, Evan, let everybody know what you got going on over at 10 Tampa Bay, 10tampabay.com, and the 10 Tampa Bay News app.
Yeah, we'll be out there doing full coverage of the preseason game at home from Raymond James Stadium against the Chiefs. You can find all that coverage on the 10 Tampa Bay News app. You can find our sportscast there as well. We were also tracking the Rays, which, they're in a little bit of a slump right now, but overall the season has been fantastic. Before you know it, in a few weeks, we'll be talking about Lightning training camp. So everything you need, 10 Tampa Bay News app. You can find it there. You can also hit up 10tampabay.com or find me on the X.
All right. Yep. Make sure you are checking out all of that. Please make sure you are following everything on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarko_Bucs, at eCloskey WTSP, Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Bucs in both of those places. Subscribe on YouTube with the notifications turned on, as well as wherever you get your podcast. Join the Everydayer Club. You can click the link in the show notes or go to lockedonbucs.supercast.com. If you want to support the show, but you don't want to join the Everydayer Club, super easy. Like this episode on YouTube, leave a 5-star review wherever you get podcasts. It does help other Buccaneers fans find the show. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. Want to thank you so much for joining us right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.